Hi, welcome to the Black TV Show podcast. I'm your host, Miriam. Welcome back to the podcast. If you've been listening to the episodes and loving the episode, please rate me a 5-star on this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and also leave a great review. It gets more new listeners to listen to this podcast, so I could be in the charts of Apple Podcasts. So just letting you know on that. So today we're doing season 1, episode 12, Rudys Sick. This episode aired December 13th, 1984. Cliff is calling Claire, she's calling her, potential partner, because apparently today is the day that she's going to become a partner at her law firm. She's nervous and she doesn't want to eat breakfast. And she's been working for that firm for 7 years, so she's like, I have to be partner now. Vanessa comes down and tells Cliff that, you need to check Rudy. She thinks that she's sick, and Cliff was like, how do you know she's sick? This morning she tried to push Rudy, and Rudy didn't push back. She just stayed still there. And so Cliff was like, she'll check on her. And Vanessa was like, can I sleep in Denise's room? And Cliff was like, that's not necessary. And she's like, well, can I at least get a mask? This is so relevant to now with coronavirus. Oh my god. Because now it's so common for us to all be wearing masks when people, just people around us, because you don't know if they have COVID. And so I was just like, whoa. I feel like nowadays Cliff would be like, yeah, you can sleep in Denise's room because you don't know if it's just a normal cold or the coronavirus. Cliff goes up and goes and checks on Rudy, and Rudy says, I don't feel good, and also Bobo is sick also. Rudy says, Bobo has a sore throat, so Cliff asks her a question about her throat, because of course she's saying that her own throat is hurting, and so he touches her throat, and she's not in pain, but she mentions that it hurts when she swallows. So of course we know she has a cold. And so Claire comes in and asks, about Rudy, that they need to get a doctor. And Cliff was like, excuse me? I am a doctor. Rudy's like, aren't you going to take Bobo's temperature? And Claire makes Cliff take Bobo's temperature. Oh, I didn't mention, Bobo is her stuffed bear. She has mentioned about this bear, I feel like now in 2 other episodes. So just let you know that. And so Claire is like, she can't go to school. I guess I'll have to get Mrs. Davis to watch her. And Cliff was like, no need. I don't start work until 1 p.m. And by then, Claire will be back home from the interview. And Claire was like, well, you don't cater to our kids like I do. Mothers are more understanding. True that, girl. Yes. We get to the living room and Denise is going to school and Cliff makes fun of her outfit and she's like, it's Scarecrow, or making fun of saying, is it Scarecrow Day? And she's like, it's a slop rally. Everyone's going to dress like this. I don't know what a slop rally is. Can someone let me know what that is? Because I don't know what a slop rally is. And so Theo comes down ready to go to school, but he needs Cliff to sign his history paper and he's covering the grade on there. And he's like, Cliff knows, oh, then that means he got an F or he got a D or something like that. And instead it says B+, and Cliff is so happy. And so he signs it and he goes, and Claire gives a list to Cliff and says, you need to do all this. You gotta give her aspirin every 4 hours. And Cliff was like, wow, you're the only person to go to law school to get a medical degree. And I was like, because of course Cliff would know more about this. He knows and understands about viruses and bacteria and all the things about the human body because he is a doctor. He went to school for this. So why does he gotta get advice from a lawyer? No, that's not how it works. So we go back to Rudy's room, and Rudy is asking, do horses get sick? And he's like, yeah, there's veterinarians for animals. And she's like, do dinosaurs get sick? And he was like, yeah, you wouldn't want to see one when they got sick. It would be super bad. And so Rudy says that Vanessa tells her that she has germs, and she asks which ones does she have, and he says tryptosis I don't even know how to say it, trypsopenicis, I think. And he's like, they hang around on a water fountain and glasses, and they say that where is the party? And they just can't wait for a young body to party in. And she says, why me? And she's like, because you're young and cute. And so she's like, how do we get rid of them? And she's like, he mentions that she needs to take water, aspirin, and gurgle. So of course, I feel like the way that Cliff approached her about germs is not, I feel like, a great way. He should talk about what viruses are, what bacteria are. I feel like now with COVID, more kids are understanding what viruses are all about. Of course, I'm going to take a page out of my microbiology courses that I took in university. The common cold that everyone usually gets is called the rhinovirus. That is literally the top virus that everyone gets, during the cold season. And they are not living cells. They're not alive. They're a piece of RNA, and they go into living cells, and they use their machinery to replicate and cause basically the effect. And then once, when you sneeze or you cough, that viral particle jumps out and goes into another person's body, and they go through that into a living cell. And that is, I think, the issue that we're dealing with COVID. Of course, COVID is so much more contagious than a common cold. That is, I guess, a brief history or a brief summary of viruses and germs. So I wish, he actually went into detail about that. Of course, like in later seasons, we'll learn about photosynthesis and like the whole cycle of photosynthesis. I know there's an episode on that. So, but I guess this is, a way you could talk to a 5-year-old, I guess. I'm not sure. And I didn't know that there was chewable aspirin. I had to look this up. I was just like, is there actually chewable aspirin? And there is. Why didn't I know about this? Like, either, like, I had to take, like, the pill that you gotta swallow. Like, I can't do that. Like, so Cliff brings the chewable aspirin, and she covers her mouth. And he's like, what's wrong? She's like, well, mommy crushes the aspirin. And so he does that, and then she still covers her mouth, and he's like, what's wrong? Well, mommy puts orange juice on there. And I'm like, really? I was like, okay. And then she was like, oh, so, she does the airplane. And Cliff was like, do you want single engine or a jet? And she's like, single engine. I was like, what? I don't get it. And so Cliff was like making weird noises while, doing the airplane. And Rudy says thank you and gurgles the orange juice and says no more party for the viruses. And so we go into Act 2, and we get to Claire's office, and she's on the phone with Cliff and says the guy is 45 minutes late, and she wants to double check if everything is okay. And all of a sudden he walks in, and the guy comes in, and she like hangs up the phone. And Mr. Halifax comes in, and he says, sorry, I'm late. I had to say hi to the elevator operator. I've known him for years. Claire is nervous about this interview, and he's like, oh no, don't worry, like, you're fine, I've checked your record, you're a good lawyer. And he's like, do you eat breakfast? And she's like, no. And he's like, it's the number one thing, like, is the most important meal of the day to have breakfast. And the guy interrupts Claire while she's talking, and he just starts rambling about things, and I'm not going to go into detail of all the things he rambled about. Cliff brings Rudy to the main floor, puts her on the couch, and Rudy's like, why am I on the couch? And he was like, well, you'll be one floor closer to where I am when I'm in my office. And he tells her that, you gotta call 331 if you need me, but don't call unless you need to. And he called, and he told her that stay on the couch, like, this is your island, you do not want to get off of it. And he says only call 331, do not put more numbers, because apparently the last time she did that or pressed numbers, she ended up calling Honduras. random country, but she did. And so we get back to Claire's interview, and he's still talking and talking and talking. And Claire was like, "Can I just check my daughter? She's sick." And so she calls, and Rudy's on the phone, and she was like, "Can I go to the washroom and get off the island?" And she's like, "Of course you can. Like, why can't you?" And so then she ends the call and says, "My daughter's sick," and all that. And then the guy keeps talking and talking and talking, blah blah blah. And we go to Cliff's office, and we see he's with a guy that's fainted on the ground, and who is going to become a future dad. And he fainted because he watched a childbirth film. And every time he hears the word film, he faints. And the phone rings, and it's Rudy, and she tells him that she wants ice cream. And he's like, "No, no, no, stay on that island. You can't have ice cream." And Cliff suggests and then he goes back to the guy and tells the guy that you need a mental coach, become a mental coach from the lobby. He does, like, you can't be in the labor room. Or else he's just going to keep fainting again. And whenever he faints for like 15 to 20 seconds. Like, it's just, how does this happen? Like, he's not even the one giving birth. Like, and also when she's giving birth, he doesn't need to be on the side where she's giving birth. He could stay by her head. And so we get back to the living room, and Rudy is reading a book out loud to herself, and Claire comes home and asks if Cliff did everything that she asked him to do for Rudy. And Rudy's like, "Yeah." Cliff comes into the room and asks if she made partner, and she was like, "I'm not sure yet." She mentions how he talked so much that she decided to leave because she didn't want to leave Rudy home alone, basically, because of course Cliff was downstairs. And Claire was like, "You know what, I'm going to take Rudy upstairs." Claire really cares for her kids. She really doesn't want to be away from them first, especially from Rudy being the youngest of the family. The phone rings, and he talks to Mr. Halifax, the guy that interviewed Claire. And he starts talking about random stuff, and but in between that random stuff, he tells Cliff that Claire made partner. And so Claire comes down to see like what's going on the phone, and Cliff is like, he's like, "Hold on," and puts the phone down and tells Claire, "You made partner." And all of a sudden they start dancing, and they were like, and Cliff was like, "I'll take you out for dinner for being partner." And Claire was, "Oh no, I am taking you out for dinner because I am partner." And so, and they were like, "And we're gonna go dance." And so they were very excited, and they decided to go upstairs, leaving the phone hanging. And Theo comes home and notices that phone is open, so he's about to hang it up, but instead he puts it in his ear. And all of a sudden he starts listening. He's like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm." and that's the end of the episode. So I feel like the theme of this episode, from how Claire was acting, is parents are willing to miss career opportunity just to make sure that the child is healthy and happy. That's what I got, my takeaway from this episode. So my question to you guys is, was there a time when your parents stayed home from work to take care of you when you were sick? I remember many times where my dad took time off. It was hard for my mom to take time off, as her work is very strict, that, she has to be there from a certain time period. My dad, it was more lenient to leave work to come take care of me or pick me up from school when I'm feeling sick and bring me home. So I remember those times. I don't know if they ever had a career opportunity that they missed because I was sick. I'm not sure. That I don't know. But I do remember those times when I was sick and my parents missed work to take care of me. And so let me know using the hashtag Rudys Sick. For this episode, I'm doing the Black TV show of the week. And the show for this week is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know why I'm singing like that. Of course, this show aired from 1990 to 1996. There's 6 seasons. Crazy thought that at this time when they created the show, Will Smith was not an actor. He was just a rapper. He already had a hit record, had a Grammy, and all of a sudden he he didn't understand the concept of money and the taxes and stuff like that, and so he spent all his money and ended up owing money to the IRS, and so he was broke. Based on a YouTube clip that I saw of Will Smith explaining his story, his girlfriend told him to go to the Arsenio Hall show. So he went to the show and he met Benny Medina, who was trying to pitch a show about his life being from like living in a low class neighborhood and moving up to a high class neighborhood. But his story was, he was raised in Watts and ended up living in Beverly Hills. I can't even say it. I'm sorry. But with Will, his situation was from West Philadelphia to Bel-Air, so a much longer distance compared to Benny's story. He ends up at a Quincy Jones party, and Quincy was like, I want you to audition for this role. Can you audition right now? And Will's like, I ain't an actor. I'm not, I can't act. And he's like, well, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And after that 10 minutes, you got to do the audition, because Brendan Chernikov was at this party. And I have mentioned in an episode, I can't remember what episode I was talking about, but I did mention that he started a lot of great big shows like the Cosby Show. That's what made NBC become one of the top cable networks in the 1980s and 1990s. And so he auditions in front of Brandon, and Brandon was like, yeah, let's create this show. And I feel like within 3 months, they end up having the show, and they created this iconic show that is going to live on forever, I feel like. So the storyline for this show is Will Smith. He's playing a fictional character of himself, so that's why it says Will Smith. Is born and raised in West Philadelphia, and who was sent to his wealthy uncle and aunt in their Bel-Air mansion after getting into a fight in the local playground in his neighborhood. His life, and so basically what I just said is from the theme song of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. His lifestyle often clashes with the lifestyle of the upper class relatives like Will's cousins, spoiled Hillary, entitled Carlton, and the impressionable Ashley. The people that were the part of the main cast of the show is Will Smith. We have the late greats James Avery playing Uncle Phil. We have Janet Hubert and Daphne Maxwell Reid playing Aunt Viv. Of course, we know that Janet played the dark-skinned Aunt Viv and Daphne played the light-skinned Aunt Viv. I really don't like how the show brought in a light-skinned lady. As Daphne did such a good job, but I feel like they should have, if they were going to replace Janet, they should have replaced her with another black woman, like a very dark-skinned black woman. And I'll be honest, this is my opinion, Janet did a better job playing Aunt Viv, and I wish she was part of season 4, 5, and 6. Fonzo Roberto, who plays Carlton. Karen Parsons, who plays Hillary. I love her. She did such a good job. And when you ever watch an interview with Karen, it's so weird to hear like she's not uptight like how Hillary is, and you hear her and she's such a down to earth person. It's so weird when you see them like that. There's Tatiana Ali, the beautiful Tatiana Ali. She plays Ashley Banks. There's Joseph Marcel, who plays Jeffrey the butler. He's so funny. Whenever he's talking serious and makes a side joke while being serious, it's so funny. There's Ross Bagley, who plays Little Nicky, and then there's DJ Jazzy Jeff, who plays Jazz, and I love every time he gets thrown out of the house. And then they had a whole lineup of lots of guest stars. I think they say that this is probably one of the shows with the most amount of guest stars. So We have Don Cheadle, Vernon Watson Johnson, Jennifer Lewis, Brian Stokes Mitchell, Tyra Banks, Nia Long, Heavy D, Quincy Jones, Albie Schur, Kadeem Hardison, Naomi Campbell, Vivica A. Fox, Jasmine Guy, Queen Latifah, Malcolm Jamar Warner, Belle Biv DeVoe, Brandon Adams, Alan Payne, Shermal Hazley, Oprah Winfrey, Vanessa Williams, Naya Rivera, Kim Fields, DL Hughley, Stacey Dash, Kadeem Abdul-Jabbar, Don Cornelius, Robin Givens, Chris Rock, BB King, Jaleel White, Gary Coleman, Marla Gibbs. So that is a huge list. And I know there was more to this list, but I picked all the black stars. There were many white stars, of course, that were part of the show, but it was very iconic. And the show really talked about, as much as this was a comedy show, they did talk about serious stuff like racism. There's a clip that I took from, I think this is from season 1, where because of last summer's protests, this episode came up of, where Carlton is like, I'm safe. When a police officer comes and stops me, I'm happy. And I'll start talking, and all of a sudden the police officer treats him horribly and ends up putting them into jail for no reason. And so that is a very good episode that I suggest many people to actually watch. They deal with interracial marriage, body image with Queen Latifah. I love that episode. Queen Latifah did it so well. Alcohol abuse, parent neglect, that famous scene where Will's dad leaves him. Gun violence, sexism, double standard, with especially raising Ashley, raising a girl compared to raising a guy is different how you treat them, and so there's a lot of episodes about that. And if you want to watch this show, it is streaming now in Canada on Crave, and in the US streaming on HBO Max. And also they did recently for Thanksgiving, they did a reunion show, and I loved it. And I wish more shows can do something like this. They always say, like, when is the reboot gonna come? When is the reboot? I feel like once the show is over, it's just impossible to make another, like, a reboot be better than the actual show. So I feel like people should just stop saying reboots, and they should say, let's do a reunion show and reunite the cast together and talk about the memories of that time. I think that's a better idea and a better suggestion. That's just my opinion. I am doing a special bonus episode tomorrow. It's dropping tomorrow. I'm repeating that. It's a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode. It's for Valentine's Day, since Valentine's Day is coming up this weekend. And so I urge you to guys listen to it. I really love this episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's integrate different storylines together, and it's such a funny episode. I just love it. I laughed a lot, but this is an episode, when I mentioned double standard, this is an episode about double standard. So check that out.